It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is time for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast brought to you by Midfirst Bank. Make sure you go over to midfirst.com/U40. That's midfirst.com/U40. Sign up for the OU Rewards credit card. Well, we are back from Arlington. The playoff committee has spoken. The Oklahoma Sooners are in the playoffs. National Signing Day is 7 days away as well. We have some eyeballs floating around like late. I guess Lincoln's on the road, so the eyeballs are late. You know, they can be late. It was 10:44, I think, is when this came out last night.
It was a late one.
Just quickly.
Be honest, I was in bed, saw the message, and
I did the exact same thing. Josh, that's
and
on
Bob
you.
got this.
I was right there with you.
Fair enough. I'll see it in 4 hours when I arise.
I was literally, I was doing the same thing. Like, I had just shut it down. I was like, okay, I had put some notes up on the board. I had finished a few other things, kind of some of the signing day prep stuff I was doing. And I was like, okay, I'm good. And I literally heard the phone go off. It's sitting on my dresser, and I hear it vibrate. And I was like, well, hell, I'll just look real quick. And sure as hell, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So, I mean, I won't say that, like, I stayed up for the next 2 hours working the phones. Like, that's bullcrap. I didn't do that.
Well, Eddie and I wouldn't know, so,
Yeah.
I did, man.
Man, it was
burn the
tough
midnight
day,
oil.
I got like 3 hours of sleep. Now, I stayed up for a little while. I had a pretty good guess at who it was. I felt it was one of two guys.
Exactly.
And it was really connected to last night's in-home visit with Dante Manning. And I knew which way I was leaning that was going to go, but Oklahoma really, to me, had started to come to a decision that it was either going to move forward with Dante Manning, we're expecting to sign next week and then announce his decision at the Under Armour All-American game, or move on and move into the direction of Kendall Dennis. And I think last night's visit kind of dictated how they were going to handle that. And, I think there is some – I will say my initial thought I don't think was wrong. I think it definitely is probably one of those two guys.
Either Kendall Dennis or Dante Manning.
Yeah. I don't want to ruin anything. I don't want to go any farther than that, but I think it's hard to ignore the connection between that visit and Riley sending out those eyes so late last night.
How could they lose Dante Manning like this?
Maybe they didn't, Carrie.
I'm being angry redneck guy, all right?
No,
jumping to conclusions guy.
Yeah, and I
don't know anything, by the way. I literally am jumping to the worst possible conclusion.
But, angry redneck from Duncan. It all works, Carrie. It plays. It plays.
That was a Marlowe dialect, okay?
But now, I think somebody asked me on the board during the board chat, which I totally forgot to do yesterday. That's where my brain is. I'm just scrambled. There's too much going on. I forgot to do it, so it's currently going on the board right now. But someone asked me, do you see any surprises next Wednesday? And I said, 24 hours ago, I'd have said absolutely not. And now I could definitely see it because you got the Major Burns situation coming out of nowhere. There is a lot happening in a really short amount of time right now.
Well, explain the Major Burns situation then.
So Major Burns, for those that don't remember, and Bob can back me up on this, was once upon a time one of Lincoln Riley's eyeballs.
He was one of the eyes.
And was a guy that seemed set to Oklahoma. Then LSU got more serious with him. He ended up staying with the hometown team. This is not Edgerrin Cooper that's near Louisiana. This is a Baton Rouge guy. And I am told late last night LSU informed him they were not going to have a spot for him.
Which they've kind of been doing for a lot of people lately.
Yep.
They have. And he's like the second or third Louisiana guy. LSU's, get ready for the beep. Don't give a meter is really low right now. They are doing whatever they want to do. And I cannot believe a week before signing day, you're going to drop a hometown kid. That doesn't
seem Ed Orgeron style, yeah.
And it's
shitty. It's shitty.
It's at 7:30 in the morning. You don't put out your own decommitment tweet at 7:30 in the morning. You're just trying to get it out there so that it's over and done with.
I can say that I have talked to a few people that told me Burns has already reached out to Oklahoma. There has been a conversation there. I don't think at this time that's going to work out. Now, what could be interesting is, we've talked before about all these possible transfers and some things that we think could still happen within the current roster. Well, if Major Burns doesn't sign next week, which unless it's Oklahoma or A&M or somebody he's really familiar with, that would be kind of surprising if he did sign at this point. Well, if he pushes into February, then maybe one of those spots loosens up and things could change. But if he wants to sign Wednesday of, a week from today, I don't see that happening.
Pat Fields, you see that portal over there?
Ouch.
Pat Fields been playing good, man.
Pat. Yeah.
Rednecks don't care, all right?
Pat and Turner Yell played every snap.
It's not often you see a school, though, treat, and I guess as big as LSU is, treat a same city school like that.
Could you imagine
that's
you doing?
Oh my God, doing that to Norman North or Norman High School,
or even
that
a
to
Union?
Ryan Broyles, after he already told Oklahoma State no.
It'd be like Union in your own backyard or Jinx in your own backyard and saying, "Oh, by the way, we don't care." I guess in a way that's a little bit of some big dick energy is what it is.
Yeah.
LSU's just kind of swinging it out there and saying we don't really care. So I kind of approve of that, but at the same time, that is for the kid to do that. 8 days?
If you're an LSU fan, you're like, oh wow, we are swinging our dicks around. But everybody else on the planet that's not an LSU fan is like, what are you doing? He was your evaluation, so now you evaluated that he could play for you. You offered him a scholarship, and now you're throwing it away a week before signing day. That's not his fault. I'm sorry that you think that you have other people out there, but you evaluated the kid, offered him. I mean, you have to stick to it. That's everybody else on the planet that's not pro LSU right now.
Well, and that's why I think, especially for me, when fans get pissed off at recruits for looking around and doing these things, coaches do it too. You don't get to have it both ways, where the players have to stick to their word, but a bunch of grown men don't have to. And I get it. Stuff changes, and I've talked to some people. Major Burns did not have a great senior year. I can understand that. But it's not like they just got his tape at LSU. Would they horse and carriage brought it to LSU's facility that's 10 feet away from his high school? No. They knew he wasn't having a great senior year. You could have let him know this stuff a month ago, but you waited until you knew you had another, you had something else lined up, and instead now you're going to drop the kid 8 days before signing. That's just a shitty move.
So for people that don't know or aren't regular visitors to the website Soonerscoop.com, Josh has he has his guide to signing day up, who is still out there for the Sooners, who is left, that you could hear from coming up next Wednesday. Josh, if you could give us some of the highlights from that for people that need to go to the site. And it's free. You don't have to have a subscription to read it. You can go check it out. But definitely something you want to take a look at this weekend and throughout this week. Yeah,
we've got all the guys highlighted, including guys like Xavier Hutchinson that's committed to Iowa State. Oklahoma commitment, Jase McClellan is a guy we discuss in there. So it's not just guys that are uncommitted. It's guys, there's a story, there is a connection to Oklahoma right now, and that we're going to be watching coming down to signing day, because either they're looking at Oklahoma or they're looking, in McClellan's case, at a school like Alabama. There's just a lot happening. And, I've got it listed as, so you can look at the official visit date that they had. And it also links to a page where we track every 2020 official visitor that has come to campus. We acknowledge the competition, the schools that are kind of involved in that recruitment, break down when we expect that player to sign, and then I just kind of give a synopsis of where I think this thing is. And finally, my prediction as of, the most recent prediction I've made for each player involved, where I think they'll go. I'm looking at it right now. I see some changes that I need to make. There are a few updates that in the last 12 hours have seen things shift around. So I will have to make some more recent changes and some updates.
Well, I mean, the McClellan thing is just so interesting because, I mean, he's been committed since junior day of his sophomore year. And
Champ U Barbecue.
Was it Champ U Barbecue?
It was the same day as Jalen Redmond.
That's right.
To give you perspective of how
insane.
long it's been. Jalen Redmond and Jase McClellan were the same exact day.
And, I know his mother's been very involved, and she's been very pro-OU this entire time, but there have been, Georgia's been involved, now Alabama's involved, but, and he stayed committed. He hasn't ever decommitted, and I think there were times we thought, okay, he's probably going to decommit, but he stayed with Oklahoma this entire. Now we're 7 days away, and it's like, okay, wait, really, what's going to happen with Jase McClellan? All this time has gone by, and he's stayed committed, and he's flirted with all these people, but nothing has changed. So, is it going to change in the last 7 days? It's unbelievable.
Let me give you the best perspective that I can possibly give on Jase McClellan. Jalen Redmond's a great one. Jeff Carter, his Alito teammate at the time, committed on the same day.
Yep.
Jeff Carter has been to 2 high schools and committed to Oklahoma, Alabama, and Texas A&M in that amount of time, and has already transferred out of Alabama, where he eventually signed. So that's how steadfast this thing has been, relatively speaking. As far as Jase, it's really a weird situation because I speak to his mother, Mia. I've spoken to sources in Alabama. And the sources in Alabama are kind of like, if the Nick Saban visit went really well, maybe there's a chance. But there's not this, there's and I mean, it's Alabama. They have every reason to be confident in every living room they walk into. But when I talk to people, I don't get that feeling like, the Alabama knows they're going to get him. I don't get that at all. And then when I talk to his mother, she doesn't ever close the door on the situation.
True.
But it's not like, we're unhappy about this or this is what's concerning. It's never like that. It's just, Jase is going to look around a little bit and, we're kind of doing what we do. It's very, we're committed to Oklahoma. She's very calm about the whole situation, which tells me that it's unlikely that something changes.
Yeah.
That's not usually the way that goes. It's usually a little more frenetic. And that's just not what I see. But when I talk to people in Dallas, people that are well-connected, the same people that told me months before Ryan Watts was going to decommit, that he was going to decommit and go to Ohio State, which is exactly what happened. These are the same people that are telling me I'd be very worried about Alabama. So I don't know. It's really 2 versus 1, and I get that. And the two are the ones that you expect to be more well-connected, but it like I said, it just gives me a little bit of pause. I would say I'm about 75% Jase McClellan ends up at Oklahoma, but that 25%, considering how long he's been committed, all the relationships Oklahoma has, that's not nothing.
Could it be 60% Oklahoma, 25% Alabama, and then what am I left with? 60.
I'm not the math guy around here.
15% doesn't sign at all Wednesday.
That is something that has crossed my mind, and it's something that she had mentioned at one point, was that basically it was she didn't want him to sit down at the table and be unsure. When he goes to sign, it's not signing because he feels like he has to, it's signing because that's what he wants to do. So I wouldn't rule out the waiting till February, but I would be kind of surprised if it went that way. Just because I would be surprised if Alabama wants to wait that long.
You have a week, don't you, to sign? Do you have
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Okay, so 3
Is
days.
that 3?
You have to
Okay.
sign.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It certainly sounds like, though, at least he has some good guidance. It doesn't sound like he has an uncle that's getting involved or a trainer or anything like that. It doesn't sound sketchy to me, just on the face of it all. And, I think if you're a running back right now, why wouldn't you have, in a way, some question marks just as far as kind of the direction that this offense is headed? The groans of getting the running back the ball were more so in the first part of the season than they are now. But
now he's a running offense.
Yeah, I could understand it in a way. Maybe where am I in the pecking order too, as far as Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon are both. They're not seniors, but at the same time,
entire crop. None of them are scheduled to leave.
It looks like a packed room on paper, but I think Lincoln Riley also probably knows that, like, and I think that we might all agree. I think Trey Sermon probably enters his name. I think there's, I'd say, a legitimate 50-50 chance that Kennedy Brooks
I'm kind of there.
thinks
with you.
about going.
Yeah.
So I could see why there's question marks maybe from Jase McClellan's side, and he's just trying to kind of get those ironed out and answered before he makes it official.
He's still Jase McClellan, though. I mean, he's still one of the best running backs in the country.
Josh.
I'm not saying he isn't. I just think that maybe his trepidation in a way is justified.
Josh,
Wow.
Like that?
Is that the biggest concern you think for Jase with the Sooners, or is there something else that we're not looking at?
I think that would have to be it. And you guys are, you're obviously there. You're around the team, all that sort of stuff. Is it really that strong a feeling that Trey Sermon is going to enter his name?
That's
me.
pure. That's pure guessing on my
I think
part.
the fact that he
kind of
showed up on crutches at the Big 12 championship is the first time that we've been like, oh, okay, he's still connected to this program.
I
in some
said
way.
something literally to both of you guys.
You did.
On Friday and then Saturday driving to the stadium.
You did.
I was like, I don't even think Trey Sermon lives in Norman anymore. I literally told that to Carrie Friday driving down to the Big 12 game because I had not seen him. I hadn't seen him on the field like pregame, and you could say, well, maybe they just don't want him on the sidelines during games for fear that he gets hurt or something. And I was like, I don't even see him during pregame. I don't see him during like when guys are walking out to practice. I don't see him. So it was kind of weird. And then lo and behold, dude shows up walking off the bus, and I was like, oh great.
And then I guess there was
Marcellus Sutton, which was odd.
There was that.
Yeah, it was weird.
That speculation because whoever that NFL draft guy was said that Trey Sermon has the best vision of any running back for this class, and then Trey quote tweeted that with a target, sound like a archery target.
Yeah.
And so that makes you think he's thinking about it.
Oh, sure.
And he's at least thinking about it.
Well, and I think that also comes from a fact of we kind of know where that running back position is as far as if you have years left in your body, you better go use them because at the running back position, you're basically fresh meat for the NFL in a way. Like
Sure.
they're going to just throw you out if you can't do anything for them.
Well, and that's the thing. You've got 4 running backs right now, with Trey Sermon included, and then you got 2 coming.
And then you have 5.
Well, Marcus Major, yeah. Forget about him.
You'd be 7 deep if everyone stayed.
But still, Jase McClellan is still better than like all of them except Kennedy Brooks, in my opinion, potentially. Hell, I'll say I think he could be better than Trey Sermon. I mean, he could be better than Kennedy Brooks.
Yeah, but you don't know. I mean, he was pretty damn impressive when we saw him 2 weeks ago, Josh.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Oh, Jace it's an interesting thing because when I get into the conversation of which of those two, when I get in the conversation of these 2 young running backs, McGowan and McClellan, which one could contribute earlier? Jase is the more natural runner. He is a guy that you can plug into almost any system, and he's going to see it. He'll run. He'll do all the things you need to do, while Seth is the physical specimen. I mean, Seth is the guy that's going to walk into that weight room, and he's not going to have any problem keeping track. Now, Jase, like Eddie and I saw a couple weeks ago, has made some moves in that area. He looks a lot different than the guy I had seen the first few years of high school, which, isn't that surprising. But he started to grow into his body, started to develop. So it's kind of interesting when you get into that conversation of, who could help the earliest. It kind of depends on what you're looking at and kind of what is going to be there in front of them. Like Jase is a lot like Kennedy Brooks. I think he's going to be a bigger guy. He's a little more physically put together, but
he's an inside runner.
Yeah, the way he runs, the way he excels is in a very similar style to Kennedy Brooks. He wants to get north and south. He's going to pick up tough yardage. He's got great feet, good eyes. He sees things really well. As to where you have a guy like McGowan who, in spite of having great feet and some of those other things, is a battering ram of a human being. He's just a big, sturdy guy that you need 3-4 yards. He can do that, kind of like Trey Sermon, and it's just like Sermon. That may not be the way his game is designed, but that's what he can do for you very early. That's a very easy way for him to be a useful piece of the offense.
Major, There's the portal.
It was kind of funny, like seeing the picture. What?
I was just going to say, I would be shocked if OU didn't do everything they could to keep Marcus Major. Everybody I've talked to says that dude has a chance to be special if he can, if they can find a way to get him some carries.
Oh, I thought he was going to get some carries early in the season and just kind of never came around. And then at the point that you thought he was going to get carries in a game, or maybe he had proven enough in the practice realm to get carries in a real game, he had the shoulder or the elbow injury and wasn't able to play the rest of the game.
I had heard, and I'll be honest, I've seen a little bit, maybe behind the scenes, a little dark web. Because Marcus Major had to carry the ball a lot.
Epstein stuff.
Had to carry the ball a lot in practices because, they take it easy on Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon. So, but I'd heard that, the stuff that he was doing in practice was really, really impressive.
No, I mean, I think that anybody that saw him in high school, anybody that has seen him live, when he actually gets the football in his hands, he's a pretty damn good running back.
You got to realize that the redneck, though, I mean, he's the same guy that's like, put Spencer Rattler in.
Oh, I know.
Oh, do you want to know the best one I heard on the board this week? And I heard is the wrong word, that I read on the board this week. Somebody brought up Tidy Armin, and somebody goes, well, he's got to be better than Pat Fields. Knock it off. Like, just stop that. There are times early in the year where you could knock those safeties. I thought, and we can get into that a little bit if you guys want to. I thought Delarian Turner-Yell, other than CeeDee Lamb, might have been Oklahoma's best player on Saturday. He was everywhere when I went back and watched the idiot. That dude, forced fumbles, had I think he had 3 tackles for loss, had a pass breakup on that late in the game. Like I said, I know he's kind of my guy, so it sounds like I'm tooting my horn, but I could not have been more impressed. I thought he really kind of is starting to put to bed that narrative that OU's got to fix their whole safety situation. Pat Fields, I love his instincts. I think he's such a smart player. He's a good kind of glue guy. But I can understand if you want to make the case, okay, there's probably a better option for them in recruiting if they can find the right guy. Delarian Turner-Yell is starting to play like a difference maker, not just a guy that can do what he has to do.
The entire thing is just, I know we kind of sound like broken records, but it's incredible the massive jump that this entire group made. Like, I tweeted about it, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday this week, just as far as I had a guy tell me, he's going to be top 25 in total defense at the end of the year. And I literally said, bless your heart. I told him, bless your heart. That was on July 25th. And lo and behold, they finish up the regular season, win the Big 12 championship, headed back to a college football playoff. And, oh, by the way, they're 24th in total defense. It's incredible. The entire thing and the way that they won the Big 12 championship, Josh, was just kind of it kind of was a perfect ending to the season in that's exactly what this team is. Just, is this team gritty? Can we say they're gritty?
I think so.
I think
Eddie.
they are.
And I remember you and I talking about it after the Kansas State game, where there was the whole comment about, this team can't handle adversity. All this team has done since that damn Kansas State game is live with adversity, and they keep finding a way to get off the mat and make a play when they have to. Like I said, it's not. I get that these games are not what Oklahoma fans have become accustomed to. They're so used to 1 or 2 games a year are going to be tight and you're going to have to sweat it out, and the rest of the time you're just beating people by 5 touchdowns. That's not how most people live. That's not usually the way it goes, and that's why nobody wants to give OU a shot at this playoff game. But at the same time, if you get into that game in the fourth quarter, Oklahoma knows what they're doing when they've been there, and LSU doesn't have a lot of experience in that kind of game.
I asked even Kenneth Murray the question after the game, and I got to say, like, I've said this many times, like, people always say, and God, the LSU fans are already coming out of the woodwork.
Were you able to get a question in to Kenneth Murray after the game?
I eventually was. Thanks, Peter.
You should have seen the Carey trying to get a question in the post game.
I was like an Iranian.
At one point, he had 2 hands up, mocking the process because it was such bullshit that they weren't calling on him. It was very funny.
Anyway,
that's amazing.
So, but for me, like, it's easy for me to say, and we all have said this before. We grew up as fans. That's not what we are. That's not what we do anymore. But we are kind of fans of people. We're fans of the players. We're fans of the guys that come in there every week and talk to us and actually don't use the scripted manual that they want them to use. And I mean, Kenneth Murray has played that role throughout his career. He's had to come in there and tell us a bunch of bullshit when the defense was terrible because, he was the guy that they relied on. He was basically just punching in, saying a bunch of words and punching out. Like, he didn't mean anything that he was saying. I'm sure, to some extent he did, but like, he's a guy that's had to he's had the entire defense on the weight of the world on his shoulders because the defense has sucked. And he's the guy that has to answer for it. He's the guy that had all the criticism coming out of the Rose Bowl. He played okay in the Alabama game, but nobody really played all that well. Like, I will love to see Kenneth Murray get a chance to take a real defense into the college football playoffs. Like, I love that storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of almost in like a real sick way. It's like a payoff for what he went through over the first couple of years. And not only that he takes this defense in, but he's the central piece of it. Like, without Kenneth Murray, when he went down on Saturday, we talked about it in the post game. I thought he tore his ACL. Like, I was having like flashbacks of like, what are they going to do? Like, what if they do win this game? What are they going to do? I thought he was done for the year, but he gets up and the rest is history. But it's just good to see somebody like that, and who by all accounts seems like, a very genuine, good person.
And put Parnell Motley right next side to
definitely.
him. I mean,
you throw all those seniors in there. Him, Neville Gallimore, and I know that Kenneth Murray's not a senior, but I think everybody kind of knows the writing on the wall there.
Yeah.
He's going to go.
Kind of like CeeDee Lamb.
It's kind of a good send-off for these guys to have an opportunity. And as crazy as this season has been, it's even more wild to think that they're back in the playoffs. Like, I still can't get over the fact that this team has kind of in a way put it all together and has, I guess, a shot.
I've been
even
saying
though both
this,
of you have buried them already. Bob and Carey.
You pointing to me?
Both of you.
We did in the postgame. We got ripped for just saying OU doesn't stand a chance of winning a national championship.
I'm going to say this, and this is not.
Pick them.
This is not. This is no. This is not anything new. I've been like a guy sent me a DM through Crimson Corner, and he asked a hypothetical, which was, what if this team played the Baker team and the Kyler team? Like, who would win and how much would they win by? And I think
it's a fascinating conversation to have.
I don't know that this team has enough offense to beat those teams, but that was before these last two games defensively.
Yeah.
Like, you could make a legitimate argument that this team has a better chance in the playoffs than those two teams because of the defense.
I think that's absolutely 100% a fact, that this team is closer to a national title in a way. But then it's like both of the 2018 or the 2017 and 2018 both have qualified.
That's the qualifier. That's it.
If Jalen Hurts doesn't
turn
have
it over,
horrible
if he doesn't turn the ball over. But I also think that, like, is the qualifier for the 2017 and 2018 teams different because, like, I think that we're gonna have to like be removed from it for 10 years to realize that Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, what they did offensively, it's some of the best football that literally the sport has ever seen.
It may never be duplicated.
It may never be done again. Like,
all the
those
draft
guys
picks that were on those two offenses.
Yeah, two. Well, I guess more than two. Dede and
Mark Andrews
Marquise.
and
The
Dede.
whole
and
offensive
That's
line.
what I'm saying. I mean,
the entire offensive line.
Like, exactly.
Marquise
That's
Brown.
what I'm getting at.
CeeDee Lamb will be included as part of that
Sure.
too.
Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's a good point.
watch the Ravens.
Exactly.
they're basically
Watch
OU.
the Ravens.
It's crazy though, just to think like they were historically good offenses, but Carey, what I think you said is right in that this team is closer to winning an. I said this morning. This team and this program is closer to, and it was talking about Lincoln Riley and the Cowboys and all that, but this group and where they're headed from a recruiting standpoint, from a program, just overall, they're closer to winning a national championship in the next 5 years than they have been at any point in the last 5 years. Is that crazy to say?
Agreed.
And OU's been in the college football playoff with historically good offenses 2 of the last 3 years.
Well, could you look at it? I mean,
But it
guys,
hasn't
it's
won.
not-
I mean, that's the biggest thing, yeah.
Murray is probably gone. Gallimore's obviously gone. You lose Parnell Motley, which has suddenly become a loss for this defense.
Say it, Josh.
And I mean, I said it early in the game when on Baylor's first possession when Motley was in space and made a play. I was like, my brain can't make myself say that Parnell Motley, like, around the ball is a good thing for Oklahoma. Like, I can't compute it still after all this time. But he may have been robbed of being an all Big 12 corner. Like, Parnell Motley, I don't know if you guys saw the stat I put out yesterday. Denzel Mims in the first 3 games averaged 9 catches for 133 yards in his career against Oklahoma and 0 for 0 on Saturday. That's unbelievable. But anyway, that's not really what I wanted to get into. Look at all the young talent. Nick Benito had a great game. David Agwebu looks like a star.
He's gonna
Ronnie
be a star.
Perkins, Jalen Redmond, Jaden Davis. I mean, you run and I mentioned Turner Yale. Pat Fields is becoming a solid piece at safety. He's not a superstar, but he's a guy. He's not going to beat you. You're not going to lose because of Pat Fields. So, I mean, there's a lot to buy into. And then you throw that offense that really, other than CeeDee Lamb, is going to return every key piece it needs. That's huge. I mean, that group next year.
Don't forget about
could
Ty
be
Dearmond.
Much better. Well, yeah, I mean,
I give the shout out to Penn because that was a complete joke, and he was doing it for all the people that talk about bringing in Rattler. And so, that was a great just throw out any name out there.
And again,
I know.
Again, I had to tell my best friend this last night because he called me because it was my birthday. So I had to tell him, like, he was talking about.
Wait, is your birthday today? Yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah. You guys didn't recognize it.
Well, shit, happy birthday, man. My
Happy
bad.
birthday.
I really tried to
No,
Nobody
do
it's
knew.
too late. It's too late. It's over.
late.
It's gone.
Damn it. It's your birthday month. It's your birthday week. Can we still not?
I'm putting it in the phone. This will never happen again.
Well,
So-
yeah. Sidebar.
Uh-oh.
I don't think
You don't put it on Facebook, so I can't know.
Go to my
That's it.
Facebook page.
Well, I don't search out for people's birthdays. They usually just come to
It
me,
is
and
on
it never
Facebook.
popped
My
up.
birthday is on
Did it pop
Facebook.
up?
It's on Facebook.
See, I didn't. That's my
I
fault.
deactivated Facebook.
All right, carry on.
Carrie, now
We're sorry.
I do want to say it wasn't in my calendar. I'm currently entering it as I say this, but I do want to also say it was also Laney's library book return day. So
Okay,
it's a
my
big day in the
God.
McQuistion household.
Holy shit.
It was- yeah,
Big day.
easily forgotten. I'm really sorry.
Bonuses are canceled for Christmas. The Jelly of the Month Club will not happen for any of you.
Oh, damn it.
Gift that
Pastor
keeps
Tom.
on giving.
See, that's the bad thing about having a guy that controls the paychecks with a birthday so close to Christmas. You dick him over, bonuses disappear.
Talk to my lawyer about that.
Okay, anyway, what the hell was I talking about? I don't even know.
What were we talking about?
You were talking about somebody made a good point on Twitter.
I think we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, with that. I mean, just the whole the defense team has a better chance this year. By the way, let me tell you about Midfirst Bank, the proud sponsor. Well, I don't know how proud they are. They knew what they were getting into. We just don't know how they feel
I think
about
they're
it.
proud.
They proud title sponsor of the podcast. They're also proud to be the exclusive provider of the OU credit card. If you go to this website, midfirst.com/U40, they made a special URL just for the pod, midfirst.com/U40, and sign up for the OU Rewards credit card. You can earn $150 back when you spend $1,000 on the card in the first 90 days. There's a apply now button right there. We've told you about this card all season. It's got the big OU logo on it. When you take the card out, everybody's going to know you're a huge OU fan. You can also be entered to win for the ultimate game day experience because every qualifying purchase made with your OU Rewards credit card earns you a chance to win the ultimate game day experience with VIP tickets to a football or basketball game, plus $500. So go sign up now, midfirst.com/U40 for the OU Rewards credit card. Thanks to Midfirst Bank for being our title sponsor of the podcast. Okay, so OU is number 4. They're going to take on LSU number 1. It's going to be in Atlanta, which will be full of LSU fans, but thank God you won't be on Bourbon Street. That was Look, LSU fans are pretty terrible, but I'm not sure that wasn't the perfect storm. Like Bourbon Street, Sugar Bowl, LSU, OU national championship.
And even Bob Stoops says something about how tough that was.
Yeah. I mean, it was awful, man. I mean, I don't ever wear OU stuff. Like, and people were still jumping right in front of me and screaming tiger bait in my face. Just drunken assholes. I mean, you were probably there as a student, weren't you, Eddie?
No, I was not in school yet. I was still in high school.
I'm thinking 09 for some reason. Yeah. So
I was in Miami. I didn't go down to that to New Orleans, but it definitely feels like that was kind of the pinnacle. Anytime any OU fan that did go to that game,
absolutely,
or LSU even comes up, it's like, oh, let me tell you about Bourbon Street. Let me tell you about 2004.
And it didn't like immediately hit me. Just like it was like, okay, LSU, and like oh shit, they're fans. Like, it took me a minute. Like, they're terrible.
It's gonna be a fun. It already is fun, but it's gonna be a fun 17 days, just as far as the build up into this one, because I think that anybody that turns on a national show gets the gist of kind of the narrative that is out there over the next 17 days. It's going to be fun. And I'm definitely not somebody that subscribes to the idea that, like, oh, well, OU's going to try and win more now because everybody's talking shit on them. Like,
they're not going to be short of motivation.
Does it play like a factor, or does it play a part in the game? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Like, I definitely, it maybe gets you a little bit more focused. Maybe you go harder in a practice drill because of stuff like that. But when the game starts, I don't think that Ronnie Perkins in the back of his mind is going to be thinking, oh, I'm going to show Greg McElroy that he's wrong. I'm going to go tackle Joe Burrow right here. Like, he's going to go do that because this is what he's been basically building his career towards. Kenneth Murray the same. Like, it's not just necessarily a huge factor in the game, but I do think that, like, I get sick of listening about it. I mean,
yeah, you can't avoid it. I mean, you won't be able to avoid it.
You can't, because everybody loves college football. You watch the ESPN shows, you watch the Fox shows. It's like, but there are two segments of those people, like, and I think we talked about it on the postgame pod, just as far as you have your Jim Moras and Jonathan Vilmas, that it's very obvious that they don't watch the football games, and so fuck them, basically. And then you have guys like the David Pollacks of the world that he just doesn't think OU's good. And I respect that. At least he stands up there and says it. Like, I think he does watch the games. He just doesn't think OU's any good. And that's okay. Like, that's his opinion. I'm off my soapbox now. I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between...
I think people have, like, obviously see my Twitter timeline and been giving it to Mora or Jonathan Vilma or whoever. It's like, at least Pollack, I think he watches the games. He just doesn't think they're any good.
Yeah.
I think Greg McElroy watches the games. He just doesn't think OU's any good, which that's okay. Like, that's his opinion. I would almost be offended if it was the other way around and he, like, just started kissing ass like Jim Mora did, saying that Jalen Hurts is is the best quarterback in the playoffs. Like,
but
get out of here.
What's
like,
bizarre to me?
You're mocking me.
What's bizarre to me, if people really were paying attention and watching OU football, there would be more takes out there about Jalen Hurts being a weakness of this team than a strength.
Oh, if people were watching the games, I don't think Jalen Hurts would be going to New York City. Is that fair? Like, is that too much?
That's fair.
No, I think you're dead on, because I did want to say, because we kind of were talking about Greg McElroy, and he brought up a point that he thinks the biggest difference between OU and LSU is Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts, and I don't disagree at all. I think they're pretty evenly matched. I think Joe Burrow just brings something to that offense that Oklahoma doesn't have right now, and that's a vertical passing game. And that lends itself to the whole Spencer Rattler argument. And somebody asked me, in the thread, what would it be like if Spencer Rattler played? I think right now in the season, OU'd be in a better spot. And you can't plug him in now. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if he'd been the guy from day one, I think this offense is a lot more dynamic. And I think, yep, that's what leads you into this conversation. But like I said, I wanted to give McElroy credit because he he's right. He's actually saying OU and LSU are pretty similar other than the quarterback position.
Josh, it's going to be Jason White and Paul Thompson all over again.
Oh, boy. That was a debate, wasn't it?
That was the dumbest summer debate of all time. It dominated
It did.
radio airwaves for the entire offseason.
What do you think?
Well, and
Go ahead, Josh.
why wouldn't you have put Paul in? I mean, Oklahoma had so much belief in him, they moved him receiver. So, I mean, it's that made all the sense in the world when people were trying to push that one.
hardly walk.
Jason White could throw and did miss Kewan Jones.
What do you think the chances?
would hit that pass.
What do you think the chances are of Oklahoma taking a snap in Atlanta, Georgia, with Spencer Rattler and Jalen Hurts on the field at the same time?
Ooh.
I would.
What about very first play?
It's already been coined the Venom package by the Bagman. I'm working on a copyright on that already.
by the Bagman. I like that.
Real people, real name, real copyright. It's in the process of happening. I would say, just based on knowing how Lincoln Riley likes to operate, I almost say there's a better than a 50% chance that happens. I'm not saying the entire game.
I really
saying
want to
one
make
game.
I really want to make a really cool graphic now, like a
Venom package?
movie poster.
I think we should
with
just-
Jalen Hurts.
I think we
and
should just carry it out and
Spencer
act like
Rattler.
it's a thing. And
I think we should.
all right, deal.
The Venom package
It's
is in.
done.
Just
It's
remember
done.
that the Bagman started it.
The reason I don't think it'll happen is because I think it sends such a clear indication to Tanner Mordecai.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's the backup quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I was bringing up before the whole birthday thing started. My friend was like, he was like, "What's the chance that Spencer Rattler could come in the game if things go bad?" And I was like, "He's not the backup quarterback for one thing. Like, if they're gonna put in another quarterback, it's gonna be Tanner Moore. Like, if they put in Spencer Rattler, I mean, I don't know, unless you're gonna have a quarterback competition in these practices leading up to the bowl or something, and then rename your number 2. I mean,
Oh, that's what the first question on site to Lincoln Riley when
Who's
we
your
get to
backup
Atlanta.
quarterback?
Who's your
Who's your
backup?
backup for the game? That's what it should be.
No, it doesn't have to be. The question that will elicit a response is, has Spencer Rattler moved to your number 2 backup quarterback position
Sources
yet?
have said.
Yeah.
Sources have indicated. What were Tua's numbers in the second half of that game? Does anybody? I can't find the box score
When he
for some
replaced
reason.
Jalen?
Yes. Because I was going to make a hot take, and I could be just completely misremembering the game in a way, but
I just remember Jalen Hurts' numbers were awful.
he was terrible. I think
mean, they
everybody
were
thought that
awful.
Tua should go into the game, but in a way, like, is Tua's legacy different? I guess is what I'm asking. Is his legacy different if they don't complete the 4th and or the 2nd and
If
26?
they don't win that game, of course it is.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Like-
if he doesn't throw that touchdown pass.
Not saying Tua's not good. I'm not saying that. I don't want people to run out there and say that I have said
But, like,
that
if
he's
he
shitty.
just
Like,
beats out Jalen Hurts in the fall the next year and becomes a starting quarterback, the legend that's around
but
him
even
didn't
if Tua
exist.
comes into the game,
Jalen Hurts, 3 of 8, 21 yards.
Jesus Christ.
Tua, 14 of 24, 166, 3 touchdowns, and an interception.
Okay, I mean, he was really good.
That's worth a legend right there
Yeah,
in a
no,
national championship
sure.
game against Georgia.
But I'm saying, I guess what I'm trying to paint the picture of, the idea that Spencer Rattler can just step into an offense and deliver a 2nd and 26 game-winning touchdown in the national championship game, like, maybe we should celebrate what Tua did more as a feat that probably will never happen again in a way, than rather thinking, well, you just take Hurts out of the game and you're gonna be a national champion. You're gonna
Yeah.
be able to throw for 350 yards.
But you don't have the guts to do it because Saban
Yeah,
did
exactly.
it. You don't have
It
Saban's
just
guts.
that whole entire like narrative kind of bugs me. I just don't think that it's.
It's just one of those things. Like, it happened, so people think that it'll
It'll happen again.
It's a move
Right, okay.
now.
Yeah.
Like, it's strategery. It's like it's a strategic advantage. Hell, look at Zeno. Did he throw for more yardage than Tua did in his?
Yeah,
Nah,
with 2
did-
throws.
Yes.
He didn't throw for 166 though, did he?
He's 81-78.
I thought he had
like
169 after that second
so
touchdown.
that's it. But he
It's like
never completed a
159.
pass. Yeah, so
Yeah, after that.
159. 2
Well,
of
I mean,
6.
if you want to count the Denzel Mims completion, then yeah, he got it.
Yeah, sure. 0 for 0. 2 things that were just completely, not to backtrack on the Big 12 championship game, but looking back on it, the fact that Mims didn't catch a pass and the fact that LaRon Stokes didn't play a snap were two of the more mind-blowing stats to come out of that game.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. People were asking on that thread, and I never even saw it until yesterday. But I don't think there was anything. I mean, his snaps have been kind of deteriorating, and I think you look at the pressure they were getting. They were just. I mean,
no, it's hard to argue with
between Benito and Redmond on that one end. I mean, they were just dominating the game.
I watched back the second half. I guess that was yesterday. They were replaying it on ESPNU, and just the way that Redmond and Benito both it's like holy
all the
shit.
Games
not only are they like
twists and
playing well, and it looked like communicating well with each other pre-snap. I mean, those guys are going to be really, really good over the next couple years.
Yeah, and then you add Agwebu in there.
Yeah, and Stripling. I mean, they're all sophomores or younger. Basically, that entire defense.
And Agwebu is just a baby. I mean, he's going to get in the weight room and blow up, and my God, he's going to be something else.
There's a lot to like over on that side of the ball for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. I mean, the team's going to be out there, around the 22nd, 23rd, somewhere around there. And I know we'll be out there. We're going to be doing a bunch of new stuff for the bowl game this year, which is going to be really cool. We'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get closer, but some more immediacy coming to you at Sooner Scoop.
For sure. I'm excited about it. This is going to be a fun week down in Atlanta. Josh, I mean, how much have you actually been able to watch of LSU this year? I'll be honest. I haven't seen a whole lot of them just because
they're usually playing when OU
yeah,
is.
our responsibilities on Saturday don't allow us to just sit down and be able to watch it.
Well, I mean, I'll ignore that shot, but my lazy ass is just doing nothing. I got you.
That's
Eddie.
not what I meant.
No,
we know that's your babysitting day.
Yeah.
You're working hard.
So, no, I've had a chance to watch them. I watched, obviously, I would say about 3/4 of the Georgia game last weekend, and have seen them. Saw a lot of the Alabama game. Saw obviously a lot of the Texas game. I actually used that as my breakdown for the Under the Hood I did for Texas. They're very good. It's one of those things. It's a lot like Oklahoma. You've got to change your perception of what you think of LSU as. Like, if you think it's a bunch of first-round NFL draft picks on the defensive line, it's not. Caleb Von Shoshon, he's that dude. He's that kind of guy. They don't have a whole bunch of those other guys, at least not yet. I mean, now they've got some young guys that are good players that are going to be somebody, but they're not there yet. It's not what you're used to seeing. And it's also, I mean, I know everybody should know Joe Burrow by now, but I mean, this is not like they just play against SEC defenses that don't know how to play the spread. No. Joe Burrow is really, really freaking good. I don't know if I'm sure everybody saw it by now, but that play he made against Georgia where he scrambles right and hits Jefferson, and then Jefferson almost scores, that's a Heisman play all day, every day. There aren't many guys in the country that could make that play.
Like, I noticed this a lot throughout the year in the Big 12. Like, you just didn't have quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year that could make that play down the field where you might have been step for step with a guy, but it was a perfect throw. Like, you would see that every weekend back in the Baker and the Patrick Mahomes and Mason Rudolph and, God, go down the list. I mean, there would be quarterbacks in this league.
Nolans.
You would see it was Sep Nolan when he had those
on
receivers.
the right weekend.
Yeah.
Carter Stanley.
He had one of those throws. One throw, and they took a 7-0 lead. Let it go.
You're right.
But
though,
Joe Burrow is that guy. If the receiver has one step on the DB, he's going to get him the ball in the perfect position.
And to me, that's why Oklahoma's defensive line has to play the best game they've played all year. That's a good LSU offensive line, and Oklahoma's going to have to find a way to get pressure because that secondary cannot play man-to-man and deal with those receivers for 4 or 5 seconds. It's not realistic to expect. Oklahoma's going to have to find some ways to get him off his spot, make him move around, and be uncomfortable. This is the way you beat every good quarterback. You have to make them move around. They just can't be stationary picking you apart back there because you'll lose. That's why they're so good. And, the part that goes unnoticed, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, their running back, is really, really good. I mean, he is a great complement to what they do offensively.
The number 22
kid. The ball.
Yeah.
The guy that had
good.
the spin move that everybody watches against Alabama. I mean, he's he's righteously good. So, I mean, this is a huge test for Oklahoma. And, guys, Kerry, when you were talking about that, it got me thinking, who's the best passer OU faced this year? Is it Brock Purdy?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that tells you where quarterbacking is in the Big 12 right now. We bag on the SEC, and rightfully for a long time. I would say the SEC had better quarterback play than the Big 12 this year.
I mean, TCU's got a youngster.
I'm just trying to go through all the games.
Spencer Sanders had some moments when he had Tylan Wallace.
Yeah,
they were just
didn't
moments.
play him, though.
Yeah, so they'd have to face either of those.
What about
Skylar Thompson looked like one of those
about
quarterbacks
Sam
when OU
Ehlinger?
played him. Ehlinger just had a terrible year.
And I don't think that it would be Charlie Brewer.
No.
Charlie Brewer, maybe the second best, though, right? I don't know. Maybe the first time around, like the first half?
First half of the first game?
Yeah.
I don't see that spark out of Brewer as a passer.
I don't either. Zeno, that first throw, you're like, whoa, that looked different coming out of his hand. And I don't know about you guys. I got kind of jacked up watching that game thinking this OU Baylor thing, this could go on for a little while.
I thought the exact same thing with when Matt Rule and Lincoln were talking before the game. I was standing next to another one of the camera guys, and I said, wouldn't it be awesome if both of these guys could stay around this conference for 5-10 years? But I just maybe it's definitely looking through the OU perspective of things. But I think Rule is closer to leaving Baylor than Riley leaving.
Yeah, and I don't know how much is left, with the way he views recruiting and the way he's going to recruit because of that. I don't know how long that talent pool is going to be sitting around in Waco. He seems like a guy that's going to drain you if he doesn't get out of there from a talent perspective.
He feels like an NFL guy in a lot of ways. There's no doubt.
Plus, just like the stuff about it's so they're going in such the different direction. Like Eddie saw this, it looked like they're a Nike school, but their warm up jerseys look like they went down to the local iron-on store.
Something that you would expect Waxahachie to be wearing or something.
I mean, it looked like a division,
Waxahachie.
like a Division III team or something out there warming up. Like they're just wearing basic T-shirts with numbers on them.
It's like the team mom had ironed the numbers on before the game.
It's like there's a reason he wears a smock like that. It's like he is very non-flashy, and their uniforms are back to being very traditional. Like he's not going to be recruiting the type of kids that Art Briles was.
No, he's just different. He's so much different. I mean, obviously, for all the obvious reasons, he's so much different than Art Briles. But the guy's just, I don't know there's any other way to say it. Like, I don't know how you could listen to Matt Rule talk and not walk away thinking, I love this guy. I love everything that this guy does.
But he's going to have to evaluate, and he's going to have to hit on a lot of 3 stars, a lot of 2 stars.
There's no doubt about that.
He's always going to have to, because even right now where he might get a few guys in Central Texas that he wouldn't normally get, with Texas being a little on shaky ground, that's not going to last. As soon as the next Texas coach comes in, whoever the hell it may be, whether they're good, bad, or otherwise, they'll immediately get that bump, and Texas will be back in the top 10, and Baylor won't get those guys. And because Texas kids just want to believe in UT. Baylor just gets treated like the little stepbrother. They always will.
College football playoff definitely treats them that way.
I mean, the whole conference, it's going to be interesting because, Gary Patterson's getting some pressure now.
Oh, I talked to some people over the weekend. I think I told you, Kerry, that it basically sounds like the big money people down in Fort Worth, you either put up or shut up this year for Gary Patterson, which is really weird for a coach to be in that spot, considering he has
everything he's done,
and he has a statue on the on the campus of him.
I mean, it's for Gary Patterson, he's always kind of had a very thin line, and let's face it, he's relied on some questionable characters as his best players over the years.
No, there's no doubt about that.
I mean, especially at the quarterback position.
Sure.
So, they're on the edge all the time, and this was a year where they got caught in a bad position with quarterbacks. The last 2 years. Yeah, last 2 years.
They haven't been close to meaning anything.
So, I could see why, TCU wants a little bit more. And, he's been there forever, and it's just like I keep saying, it's hard to be at a place for 15, 16 years now. People want something new. The attention span of everyone, even the olds, is shorter than 15 years.
Gary's got to adapt.
Yeah.
And we haven't really seen that.
And he's always been old school.
He did Cumbie and Meacham. When he did that re-energized the program. Now he needs something of that equivalent.
But yeah, I mean, and Matt Campbell looks like he's going to stick at Iowa State, and I mean, God, I don't know how much. I mean, there's some of the same similar rumblings about Gundy at Oklahoma State, kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah, those seem like those happen once a year, don't they?
Well, I mean, not about him leaving, but just about people kind of being like, now that Boone's
Oh yeah,
gone,
I got you.
Like he
Well,
might
I mean,
just decide, I've
Be
had
interesting.
enough.
Be interesting.
He's made enough money; he could just hang it up.
Oh, he would definitely be taking the Bob Stoops trajectory, right? Watching.
No, I think that's how Mike Gundy goes out. He does the Bob Stoops thing.
I don't think that's crazy at all.
I tweeted something on Saturday after the game, and it was kind of along the same lines what we're talking about. Like, man, there's a lot of really great coaching in the Big 12 right now. I mean, we've talked about it a little on the pod, so I won't go into all of it again. But I mentioned Mike Gundy as one of those great coaches, and they're like, Gundy? I mean, I got Oklahoma State fans that were like, what? Are you kidding? He's responsible for the greatest run in your program's history. What are you talking about? Like, I don't know what you think. And it's just the same stuff we talk about.
Oregon got kind of sick of Bilotti, too, in the same way.
Yes, you're right. And like, it's like you've forgotten who you are. And I get with Oregon, they can still kind of act that way. They've still got Phil Knight. Oklahoma State's and they're on sketchy ground without Boone. I mean, they don't have that money that whenever they need something to get fixed or get right, okay, here it is. This is going to take care of it.
I heard the plumbing's going to shit in that place.
In the Boone?
Yeah, I'm kidding.
I pissed outside. I just on the side of the stadium. No big deal. In a way, I think it's kind of in a real odd way to like wrap it back into OU. I think a lot of Oklahoma State's frustration, a lot of those schools that we're talking about that, don't really maybe know how good they have it until it's gone type thing, is a direct result of usually an Oklahoma or, Oregon's case. I think it was USC at the time. Those other big blue blood programs were just so good that it's hard to get over that hump. It's hard for I think the big takeaway from Stillwater this year was, oh, it's official. If it's not already, Mike Gundy has an Oklahoma problem. Not maybe to an extent, and maybe that's a good way to justify it to yourself if you're an Oklahoma State fan. But at the same time, it's like
Texas had an Oklahoma State problem.
Who is beating Oklahoma right now, though?
Yeah.
At that level, nobody is, and nobody has for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's strange because you've seen people like Iowa State kind of come up. Texas has been down. I mean, it just throws everything out of whack.
Yeah.
I mean, and Oklahoma State's been one of the better teams, in this conference for a while. I mean, they
literally have been the second best team,
and they
in the
didn't have
conference.
any scandal like Baylor to rip them apart or anything like that. I mean, they just kind of did it how they do it.
Yeah, it's just I think it's a tough spot, and especially for a guy like Mike Gundy, because it's a little unfair that he's always going to be put up his results of what his program is will always be matched against Oklahoma. And I mean, there's a handful of teams that are doing exactly what Oklahoma's doing or even trying to attempt it. I mean, my God, we're talking about a team that I think everybody knows the score, lost 4 offensive linemen, lost a Heisman Trophy winner, had a new defensive staff, and they still found a way to win the conference for the 5th straight year. They're still back in a college football playoff. So it's a tough conversation to have.
By the way, we were recording this pod on Wednesday. Thursday night will be the Home Depot College Football Awards. I know that the Joe Moore Award 4 finals came out. Oklahoma was not one of them. I think Alabama.
No, I'd missed that. I didn't even see that.
Georgia.
Yeah, Beatenbelt wish congrats to him.
LSU was
That's
one
fair.
of them.
LSU.
I don't think there's no qualms in that, is
And
there?
Michigan was the
No.
other one. Yeah.
No, that's not that offensive line it's not. I mean, they're good. They're better than probably should have reasonably been expected for all they lost last year, but they're nowhere near last year's group right now.
I wonder how much the Big 12 championship gives CeeDee Lamb a little bit of a boost here at the end. I don't know what that voting process is like when it usually happens. I would think it kind of goes along with everybody else where it's just happened recently and online. The Heisman is on Saturday. Of course, it was announced Jalen Hurts will be in New York for that. Joe Burrow, and then 2 Ohio State players in Justin Fields and I can't ever remember the defensive end.
Chase Young.
I want to say Cody Thomas for some reason. Chase Young.
I wish it was Cody Thomas.
That'd be awesome.
I bet Cody Thomas is a better baseball player than Chase Young. So, but yeah, I mean, we all expect Joe Burrow is going to win that thing. None of us expect Jalen Hurts is going to win that thing because I think most of us are more like
do not go into Saturday night thinking Jalen Hurts is going to win the Heisman.
Don't do
it's motivation afterward, man.
It's not going to happen. That's okay too, because I think that anybody that would have said at the beginning of the year Jalen Hurts is going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist, I think anybody would have said yes.
Take it. I will say this: like the best part about that is just that OU can brag about that. They can make up their signs about Lincoln Riley's had a Heisman Trophy finalist every year he's been here, and that's what attracted guys like Spencer Rattler here in the first place. So it's what Brock Vandegrift attracts him here. So it'll keep attracting talent.
Is it possible?
You hope that CD wins the Biletnikoff.
I was going to say, is it possible they finish 1-2 with LSU, OU, Heisman, Burrow, Hurts, Biletnikoff, Jamar Chase, and CeeDee Lamb?
Is it weird that in past years, does it feel like sometimes, and I don't think voters look at it this way, but it's kind of like the, one, I forget which quarterback award it is, but it's like the Heisman usually wins this one. And
Maxwell
and
Walter
the Maxwell and
Walter
Heisman,
Camp that usually goes to somebody else.
It's usually the Maxwell.
Did Rudolph
wins
win
the Maxwell wins the Heisman?
Okay,
and then the Davey O'Brien. Sometimes
Davey O'Brien's maybe what I'm thinking of, because Rudolph won one of them the year that Mayfield won the Heisman. I want to say, I don't remember how that shook out, but I guess my point was, in a weird way, do you think that maybe Lamb wins the Biletnikoff because Burrow wins the Heisman?
No.
Okay.
I don't. I'm trying to. I know Chase's numbers
Door slam shut.
I know Chase's numbers are better, and I think him
if you're
not
going to go
playing
off numbers,
Waco,
though, Tylan Wallace should have won it last year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But now he's also playing for the best team, so it's got your perfect combination there.
That's true.
And what Lamb did in the Big 12 championship game was sensational, but what he did in Bedlam and TCU, I think will be held against him a little bit, because I don't know if Chase had one of those down games. He might have, just because of the fact they were dominating so much. But I think what Chase, his body of work will be enough to usurp Lamb.
Let me ask you this, Josh, because you're not here in Oklahoma, so you're the best person to ask about this. You don't hear all the talk like we hear about Chuba Hubbard. But in your mind, is Chuba Hubbard the best running back in the country? Or is it J.K. Dobbins, or is it the kid at Wisconsin?
I would probably have Dobbins in front, but I think it's real close. Like I totally get the argument. I think Chuba has a case. The idea that OSU fans thought he was going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist, like that never was even a possibility for the last month. I don't know why anybody got that in their head. I don't understand it. I don't know where that comes from. But he was never getting invited. Now, if you want to say he's one of the best players, sure, but that's not what the Heisman Trophy is.
He's the best player on the best team, yeah.
He was not on a good enough team. All four of the finalists play for playoff teams.
Yeah, I think if Oklahoma State had the year that Baylor had, then he would be in New York. But, and I've said this 100 times, it feels like, the year Barry Sanders won it, they went 10-2. They lost against two top 10 teams in Oklahoma and Nebraska.
That was 1988, though.
But I'm still saying
two of the best teams in the whole country.
That's still like, Tim Brown won it in that era because he played for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I think they went to the Cotton Bowl the year he won it.
I think there's a very outlined formula to win the Heisman Trophy in what I call the modern era of the Heisman Trophy. And the modern era, I guess, would be post Mark Ingram, just as far as I don't think a running back will ever win the award again.
I think he will.
Unless he comes from a blue blood program.
Yeah, I agree. That part I go with.
No, but that's a horrible qualifier. I
know.
You can win. You just said a guy will never win the Heisman again unless he plays for a blue blood. You can.
Instead of running back.
It's possible.
Running back.
But what I'm saying is, it's possible for a blue blood, let's just say Wisconsin. They're not a blue blood.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Let's say they are the number one seed in the college football playoff, and they are which is a power running team that does some play action. And Jonathan Taylor is leading the nation in rushing. He'll probably win a Heisman if that's the case. and there is no Joe Burrow, and there is no Ohio State.
Would Chuba Hubbard be in New York City if he was at Oklahoma this year?
Yeah.
It's possible nobody would be because he and Jalen Hurts would knock each other out.
I think that's fair. Okay.
Right. That I'd have a hard time.
But
trying to
Hurts'
figure out the
numbers
numbers.
would take a drastic hit, wouldn't they? It's a tough game to play. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that if OU was 8-4, Chuba Hubbard had the type of year that he had this year, Jalen Hurts isn't at Oklahoma. We'll just take him out of the equation.
And they have like Trevor Knight as their quarterback?
Sure. Who I thought it's pretty debatable is Jalen Hurts. One of our buddies said this. Jalen Hurts is Trevor Knight, but with Lincoln Riley as offensive coordinator, which I thought was pretty damn funny and maybe accurate. Do you think Oklahoma would send an 8-4 running back like a Chuba Hubbard to New York?
No.
I think there would be a much better chance. He would have been talked about. They wouldn't have had. He would have been talked about
But they're 8-4.
a lot more.
He would be talked about that. Not if they're 8-4.
I think he would have been talked about a lot more
If they're 8-4,
than
they're talked about like Sam Ehlinger was talked about it for a Heisman candidate.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that logo has a lot to do with it.
It didn't have anything to do with it for Ehlinger.
But they were basically looking for he didn't deserve it. If he would have played well, he might have had a chance.
Flip it around. Put Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma State. Any chance
No
in hell
chance.
Jalen Hurts is... Yep.
Well, but if Oklahoma State won the Big 12 and it was Jalen, all those national people probably would have voted for him because it was a great story.
Maybe.
And I think that there is a little bit to do with just as far as Chuba goes. When people were actually watching, like the Bedlam game.
That's what I was going to say. You have to show up in the biggest games.
The West Virginia game, even though it's not fair, it was an 11 a.m. game that people were watching because it was a weekend that you could watch football.
I thought Jonathan Taylor might sneak in because of the way he played against the Buckeyes.
It's just a weird.
played great.
It's a weird award.
They would have had to win that game.
I think the entire thing is a fraud, just as far as the way that it's set up. I think that to have, what's the number, like 870 something voting for the award. That's your first problem. There shouldn't be that many votes out.
You could say that, but Lamar Jackson wasn't from a blue blood, and he won it in recent years.
I completely accept that point because I do think, though, at the same time, from a statistical standpoint, and what he did when he did have the people watching, it's hard to argue against what Lamar Jackson was. And I think what he's doing in the NFL now obviously kind of proves that point that, yeah, he probably was the best player that year.
Yeah.
You just have to have a year where all the blue bloods are having a down year or don't have a star player.
And it was because who?
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson should have won it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yep. But, I mean, Jackson played so well, put up stats nobody'd ever seen before.
Well, and he did. Remember what he did against Clemson.
Yeah,
Right.
They didn't lose that Clemson game because of Lamar Jackson. They almost won that game because of Lamar Jackson.
That was the only reason they were within 5 touchdowns of that Clemson team.
Definitely. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have. To say that I believe that the Heisman Trophy it's probably still the most, it's the biggest amateur award in sports, I would say. I think the appeal of winning the Heisman or having a player up for the Heisman is still everything that it meant it used to mean.
You know what I heard?
But in a way, I think there's been something taken out of it.
I've heard the Heisman, the best description of the Heisman I heard was last week. I wish I knew who to give credit to, but they said the Heisman is the closest resemblance to the green jacket in the Masters in sports.
I mean, the green jacket's still the green jacket, though. There hasn't been any mystique taken away out of it.
Well, no,
you could say that it's bigger than ever.
You're
this
the
year
only
with
one
Tiger
sitting here
winning
saying the mystique's been taken away out of the Heisman.
You guys don't think there has been? Even a little bit?
It's one of the most prestigious awards in sports.
Yeah. When Ndamukong Suh didn't win it, that was when I started to become jaded about it.
But to say that it doesn't
it's
go
not
to the
about
best,
the best player.
You know
it's
the
not
history.
About it. It drives me nuts.
I think Josh and I are on the same wavelength.
The history of the Heisman, though, you have to know that going in. Like, you have almost zero shot of winning it as a defensive player unless you also play some sort of offense or special teams.
Then just call it the best offensive player. It's not. It's represented as something it's not.
They don't need to do that. It's the Heisman.
I get it. But you're asking me why I'm jaded about it. That's why I'm jaded about it. It's not the most outstanding player. It's the best player on the best team.
Do you think at some point over the next, we'll say 10 years, decade, okay, I think we'll be closer to a defensive player winning it because there will be people that it's kind of the society that we live in, and that there's going to be such an uproar about, what we're basically talking about, that people are going to overreact in a way, and there's going to be a defensive player, might be Buki next year, that
Justin Flo.
Justin Flo, that'd be sweet if it was.
That'd be amazing.
Has he
ripping somebody's helmet off?
Has he committed yet?
No, he hasn't.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Clemson, but it's
yeah. I remember that was kind of the word.
Oregon
when we, even
and Clemson?
all the way back when we were in Atlanta.
I think George is in there too, Kerry. I can't. I won't lie that he's been a focal point of my attention for a while or anything. But yeah, I agree completely with Eddie. Like, it's gonna just be like Eddie just said. It's the whole woke society. Like, you gotta acknowledge that this is not what this is about. It's just become this, silly little competition between who's the best player on the best team rather than rewarding the most outstanding player in college football. And so they're going to get some sort of overreaction. And I think it'll probably end up going to a guy that it shouldn't, just because it's, well, look at this. And it could have been this year. If Chase Young hadn't gotten suspended and lost all that momentum he was starting to build, and Joe Burrow doesn't just totally
Chase
resurrect
Young had
the LSU
zero
offense.
tackles against Michigan, though. After he came back.
Yeah. He also had like 16 sacks, destroyed Penn State.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
You got
to apply the same rules to him as you did an offensive player. And if Joe Burrow went out and threw 5 interceptions against Georgia and they didn't win convincingly, then you'd be like, I don't know if he's the Heisman.
Oh, Joe Burrow could have shit the bed against Georgia, and he's still the Heisman. There's nobody close.
His worst game is absurd at how good it is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Chase Young had a chance in the right year. This wasn't the right year. This is like Baker in 2017. Like, there's nobody else close.
Yeah, and he was going against the returning Heisman Trophy winner, and he was still clearly the best choice.
Yep.
But you guys are making it out like
Tua,
everybody gets screwed every year. Like it's some sort of, I don't know, like somebody's scamming the system. Nobody's really scamming. There's just some years where it's debatable if that guy should have been the guy.
Yeah. Well, I just think that
and yes, defensive players don't get a chance. It's not like, they're the Astros and stealing pitches and using the PA system to tip people off.
Why are you bringing up old shit?
That basically is what they're doing, though, in a way.
That's nowhere even close to comparison.
Well, if you go,
God,
there's only a certain amount of guys that can win the Heisman, though. If you you have to go to a big school, you have to probably be in the playoff. You have to, you can't like. I just think it's unfair that a school like I don't know. We'll use Oklahoma State again as an example. You can't go to Oklahoma State and win the Heisman Trophy. Under today's modern era of the Heisman Trophy,
if you get to the playoffs, you can.
Okay, and to get into the playoffs is even harder because of the helmet logo. You see what I'm saying? Like, you have to we've talked about this before. You have to go undefeated if you're Oklahoma State to get into the playoffs. You have to.
Baylor could have had one loss and got
Baylor was close.
Georgia probably would have gone in.
That would have been
Baylor. The way that the committee talks, which I don't believe at all that they actually had a legitimate conversation between.
They admitted that
Georgia
they didn't.
and Oklahoma.
They admitted that Oklahoma was the clear choice. Rob Mullins, when he was pressed on it, he admitted Oklahoma was the clear choice, and it really wasn't a debate. But they were just comparing them to do their due diligence. Just like they were comparing Memphis and Boise State and whoever else
makes
in
more
the
sense.
non-Power 5.
So stupid. The whole thing, the whole playoff thing.
Go to a couple that connect to Oklahoma. Jason White over Larry Fitzgerald. Hell no. I hated that one. I never got it. I remember that was like the first time I infuriated the corner because I was like, Larry Fitzgerald's the best player in college football. It's not even.
But that's like Eddie said. That is where you run into when you have 8,000 people voting. That the helmet, wins.
Yeah. Next year, the flip. You got Matt Leinart over Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, and Adrian Peterson should have won it. Yeah.
Out of those 800 voters, I would say I think it's a small number. I would say like 120 of those 800 voters legitimately sit down, watch, as much as they can, do the homework they can. I mean, we have people on TV that literally don't watch games that they're paid to talk about.
Yeah.
So how can I trust
Anyone who
whoever
voted before the conference
Well,
championship
especially
game.
you should be arrested if you do that.
there are retired people. There are people that that gave votes that were responsible for that people used to be their radio partners that aren't even in the business anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that goes on.
It's just, I don't know. There's not much you can do about it. I think everybody still knows that the Heisman Trophy, as you said, is one of the most prestigious awards in sports. It just,
Look, Jim Moore can't figure out that OU's defense is actually decent. Do you think enough people are paying attention to the Heisman, the number of votes, and saying, "Oh, it's a scam"? Like it's not legitimate anymore. No, people hear the Heisman because of years and decades of credibility that's been built up that says this is the most prestigious award in not just college football but in sports. It's going to take a lot more than just not voting for Ndamukong Suh or Larry Fitzgerald and or Jason White instead of Larry Fitzgerald to put any kind of stain on that award.
Well, if we want to start, this is where we could start by working towards progress. Stop inviting Billy Sims to the trophy presentation.
He's not going to get to yell Boomer this year.
You don't think? Why not?
Well, he will when he's introduced. When he's introduced,
he definitely
will.
And it'll be just as cringeworthy in 2019 as it was
at 3.
Ooh, that's a good one.
All right, man. I don't think I want to talk anymore because you brought up
Mark
Billy Sims.
Ingram over Ndamukong Suh.
I know.
I can't. I'll never get past that.
That's a helmet thing.
That's my Waterloo. All right, I can't go any farther.
I think it's Ndamukong, but you say it how you want.
There's a G in there, and I want to pronounce it. Damn it.
Any extra business you guys want to get to? We'll be back again next week.
Very quickly, Josh, it's the only recruiting weekend before signing day. What are the Sooners looking to try to do here?
Well, obviously we all know Josh Ellison will come in, the defensive lineman from Blinn. I think Oklahoma is in great shape there. I think really the only question was for a while whether Oklahoma was going to have room to take him. I think that's probably been crossed. I think, with them bringing him in, Lincoln Riley going in and doing a visit with him earlier this week, I just don't see any way that they're at this point they're going to pull the brakes. Like I think they're in. He's going to probably end up as part of this class. The other, and I haven't confirmed whether this is going to happen or not, is Xavier Hutchinson, his teammate from Blinn. He is an offer that was kind of a response to the Grant Calcaterra retirement. They kind of see him as a flex tight end. I know people keep bringing up other sites talking about, there's big wide receivers. That's not really what they see him as. From what I understand, he is seen as kind of a flex tight end kind of guy, and that's the way they want to use him. So I think that is what you're kind of looking at. Now, as of last week, his visit was a possibility. I have not been able to confirm whether that's been canceled or if that's been actually put forward. I'm not sure where that's at. We'll know more. I'll have it up on the Crimson Corner. And it's a perfect time to sign up with our new Nike promo. But,
Pour it out. Let's go.
Yeah, no, hey, for those out there, find me on Twitter at Josh_Scoop. I'll give you all the details, but basically 25%
or just
off
go to
your
the
subscription.
Site.
Or go to the site. We need to put something up on the site.
He doesn't have to be a back channel thing where Josh takes $5, of his own to keep.
There's a processing fee.
My
Damn
God.
it, Carrie. And then there's along with the 25%
You make
off
enough
the
money.
annual
They don't need to
subscription.
buy your Santa gifts for you, okay? I'm sorry. Santa doesn't buy gifts. He makes them.
Wow. My children could hear this, Carrie.
I just corrected myself.
It's too late. They've heard it. Now Lainey's crying in the back seat, and I'm going to tell her it's Uncle Carrie's fault. No.
And then your wife will shout, "He's not here, Uncle."
Again, let me finish this promo for the site that you co-own. Damn it. All right, 25% off the annual and $75 in free Nike gear to our site. So it's a great time to sign up. It's kind of a unique deal. It's one we've never done before. A little different than years past, but it basically amounts to $100 in free stuff to sign up, get all our National Signing Day content, get all the guys' coverage of the Peach Bowl, I'll be going to Orlando, San Antonio, covering the All-Star games. Bob may get dragged to one of those. We're not quite sure how that's going to work out. So there is a lot of stuff to be around right now. And to get back into what Bob was talking about, the only guy that I have talked to, Chandler Morris, he was one of the guys that we have kind of mentioned off and on, maybe as a visitor this weekend. That visit will not happen from what I'm told. Lincoln's going to be in New York with Jalen Hurts.
Right.
There just wasn't a lot of reason to make that trip. I get every impression, though, that even with his father taking the job at Auburn, Oklahoma is very, very much in this race. I've probably am about as confident as I have been in that situation, really, since it began.
So, vote of confidence for Bo Nix then.
Yeah. And Auburn has a quarterback already committed, and I've talked to the Auburn, some of our Auburn
a 2020
people.
guy.
They have one committed, but I'm told they want a second one. So I don't think this is a case of Auburn not pursuing Chandler Morris. I think it's a little bit of Oklahoma's a situation he likes. Obviously, he's gotten to know them a little bit better than maybe he knows the Auburn staff. Of course, excepting his own father.
That's got to be a little dicey. I mean, coming in with your dad who's taking over as the new offensive coordinator when you have an established freshman quarterback. I mean, that's a tough dynamic.
And you also add in that I'm sure Chandler has now seen what that looks like if it goes bad.
Yeah.
So he signs with Auburn, and in a year or two from now, Chad Morris is out of a job, or Gus Malzahn's out of a job, or whatever. And then he's stuck at Auburn, where he pretty much went to go play for his dad, and his dad's not there anymore. Like that's a tough thing to navigate. Like you're talking, there's a lot of dynamics that people I don't think are thinking about. They're just thinking, oh, he's going to go play with dad. I don't know that that's a full positive for Auburn, as some people are assuming it is.
Yeah, it was a lot different situation at Arkansas than it would be at Auburn. By
Absolutely.
the way, I want to mention something that you brought up, Josh. I know we all got to get out of here, but it is kind of interesting when you look at the Dave Aranda stuff up for the UNLV job.
He didn't get it.
Did not take it. Well, that's what I'm getting at. And Josh, you had mentioned, like, if Dave Aranda can't get the UNLV job, like, what does that mean for just defensive coordinators in general? And you brought up Alex Grinch. Like, how hard is it for a DC to get a head coaching job right now?
Dave Aranda, for OU fans that don't really follow it, Dave Aranda is about as respected a mind in defensive in that particular pool as there is in the country. Dave Aranda was a star at Wisconsin, came to LSU, has led a lot of great defenses down there. And I know a lot of people are, LSU's not that great on defense this year. They got a lot of new pieces. I mean, there's a lot going on there. But he's very, very good. And the fact that a guy like that, the best he can do is UNLV, that's kind of and it's a product of where we all are right now. Everybody wants offense. Everybody wants to get the offensive coordinators. I mean, what did 2 or 3 new head coaches burst out of the Los Angeles Rams offensive meeting rooms last year? Zach Taylor, Matt LaFleur. I mean, anybody that has connected to any offensive mind of repute right now is getting a head coaching job. Defensively, nobody's paying any attention, and I think OU fans have to see that as good news, because Alex Grinch is not going to suddenly get, I don't know, the Michigan job or something like that. They're going to go try to find the guy who's going to make Michigan's offense hum. So, you look at the new jobs. Mike Norvell, offensive guy. I mean, you just run down the list of all the big new hires. They're offensive guys, and that's probably going to continue, and I think that's nothing but good news for Oklahoma because it looks like they have their DC.
Is Aranda's situation different because of just how much money he's making at LSU?
I'm sure that's some of it, but if he was willing to look at the UNLV job, surely he's got some interest in being a head coach. And I've heard Colorado State is a job he's expressed interest in too. And neither one, I mean, UNLV they can pay more than what he'll make. They're kind of a unique Power 5 or a Group of 5 job. But if you're willing to even look down that road, then you have interest in head coaching jobs, and it tells you that Florida State didn't call him. Some of these other openings in recent years, they didn't make that call to him. They went after offensive guys because everybody's looking for, let's be honest, the next Lincoln Riley.
This might be a conversation for a different day, but is OU ready to have to make another commitment to assistant coaches? Because, I mean, you look at what Oklahoma has on staff right now. I mean, Grinch is going to get a big raise. Beatonbow's probably due for another big raise. Like, they're going to have to – I thought it was kind of a jump that they had to make last year, wasn't it, as far as meeting – even getting Grinch over, was it 1.3, I think, or 1.4? Mm-hmm. Like, they're going to have to go 1.7, 1.8 maybe?
They're going to have to
maybe
bump
make
up.
him 2? Are they going to? Would they make him 2?
Manning and Odom are going to have to get the bumps up too.
Yeah, those aren't just major bumps, though, are they? I really don't know.
You look at the way the secondary transformed. Manning's going to have a lot to show.
Guys, the second lowest paid guy on the team, Calvin Thibodeau.
Yeah.
That's got to be fixed.
Yeah.
That defensive line just led the Big 12 in tackles for loss and is number 7 in the country. Now, some of that is a product of Alex Grinch and that defense, and I get all that.
Sure.
But you look back, when he was hired, what we were saying about that defensive line room and where it is now, it's just night and day.
Yeah.
A perfect example that probably gets glossed over because one play later they gave up an 85-yard touchdown, but Isaiah Thomas had a pretty big sack in the Big 12 championship game.
Those were only 2 snaps.
We're talking about development.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, you're talking about a team last year that lost one player in Obo and just completely fell apart. They couldn't get a pass rush to save their life. And now all of a sudden, a year later, it seems like they've just got guy after guy after guy that can come in and create pressure. It's been an unbelievable job. All right. Well, look, we got a lot of stuff to come. As Josh told you, great promo on the site. Go check it out. Also, midfirst.com/U40. Go sign up for that OU Rewards credit card from Midfirst Bank. And thanks to Josh McCuistion. Thanks to Eddie Radosevich. Thanks to Bob Prisbillo. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Midfirst Bank Unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com.